Incredible discovery. World War II bomber's heartwarming truth exposed after 75 years of hidden history. The musty air of the attic wrapped around Mary Thompson like a heavy blanket, pulling her back into memories of her childhood home. Dust motes danced like tiny spirits in the golden light streaming through the small window. Today, her heart was a storm of emotions, made even more turbulent by the recent loss of her grandfather. As she methodically sorted through the relics of a life well lived, her fingers brushed against an old trunk wedged behind boxes, gathering dust like an unwanted secret. The trunk was a faded testament to a long-gone era, its metal hinges rusted and locked tight, whispering of mysteries begging to be revealed. With a deep breath, Mary knelt down and pried open the heavy lid. A cloud of dust arose, and she coughed, the smell of old leather and paper filling her senses. Inside lay letters tied with yellowing string, photographs that smiled back at her through the years, and medals glinting dully in the light. Her heart raced. This was no ordinary trunk. It belonged to her grandfather, a World War II bomber pilot whose stories always felt like shadows, faint, intangible, and often overlooked. As she picked up the first letter, her fingertips trembled. Each word dripped with the weight of sacrifice and courage. Her grandfather had flown missions over Europe, facing not only enemy fire but also the daunting silence of a society that often forgot its warriors. Page after page revealed the heart-wrenching turmoil of a soldier yearning for home, battling ghosts that lingered long after the war ended. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she realized that the man she thought she knew, a quiet, steadfast figure, held stories that could shatter perceptions and illuminate truths. Then came the bittersweet reality of her family's current struggles. Mary's estranged brother, Jake, a mechanic with a heavy heart for failure in an economy that seemed to crush dreams, often dismissed her grandfather's sacrifices as irrelevant. They had fought too many battles of their own, each argument feeling like another blow. But now, deep in the attic, the door to their grandfather's legacy was wide open, and Mary felt a desperate urge for reconciliation as she continued to read. She was struck by the undeniable link between past and present. Could these stories of courage bridge the chasm between her and Jake? The thought ignited a flicker of hope. What if honoring their grandfather's legacy could inspire both of them, breathe warmth into the coldness that had formed? She envisioned the community gathering honoring veterans, a place to share her grandfather's truth, where together they would remember. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the community event approached, Mary's stomach churned with anticipation. The day came with a familiar chill in the air, a silence heavy with unspoken words as she felt her brother's eyes pierce into her. Just as she began to speak, ready to unveil her grandfather's ordeal, an unexpected revelation surfaced. A hidden letter fell from the old trunk and landed softly at her feet. The words stumbled towards her like unyielding waves, holding a truth that threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew about sacrifice and family. Would these words unite them, or tear them apart once more? Mary's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the letter that lay at her feet. The envelope was slightly tattered, and she felt the urge to reach down and pick it up, but her hands were frozen mid-air. A glance at Jake revealed his furrowed brow, his expression a mix of confusion and frustration. She knew he wanted to dismiss her passion for their grandfather's story, to tell her this was just another of her fanciful notions. But today felt different. Today held an undeniable weight. Finally, she scooped up the letter, brushing off the dust as if unveiling a relic of her family's history. The air felt electric as she tore open the envelope, her fingers trembling with anticipation. Inside was a neatly folded sheet of paper, creased and yellowed with age. She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar knot in her throat tighten as she began to read aloud. "Dear Emily," she started, her voice wavering slightly. "If you are reading this, Then I have managed to survive another day, and perhaps you have too. My brave girl, the words flowed, bright with vibrant life and suffused with a deep love that nearly brought her to tears. This wasn't just a letter to a beloved wife. It was a vivid portrayal of war, hope, and a longing for home. Mary glanced up at Jake, and she caught a glimpse of the emotional shift on his face, a flicker of interest breaking through his earlier skepticism as she continued to read. The details painted the story of her grandfather's heart, revealing a softer side that remained hidden throughout their childhood. He spoke of the laughter of crew members, the sense of engine oil mixed with the chill of the wind as they soared through cloud-covered skies. It was a world her grandfather occupied, one filled with camaraderie and fear, love and loss. And woven within were little nuggets of wisdom that resonated deeply, reminders that families weather storms together, even when they are parted by distance and time. I wish you could understand, my sweet girl, she read. Every mission I fly, I carry you in my heart. Your strength is the wind beneath my wings. Mary's voice broke as she finished the letter, the impact of those words striking like a thunderclap. Memories of childhood laughed in the background of her mind, of evenings spent listening to her grandfather's tales, but never really knowing the truth, never grasping the depth of his sacrifice. She looked at Jake, who was now visibly moved. She saw his resolve begin to crumble, layer by layer, and the glimmer of understanding spark in his eyes. I never he started, but the words fell short, replaced with a hesitant silence. Jake, this isn't just our grandfather's story. It's ours too, she said, the determination in her voice rising. We can't let it fade away. We need to share his truth, but more importantly, we need to share our truths too. His eyes flickered down towards the trunk, then back to her, uncertainty fighting with the desire for connection. She rushed forward, prying open another letter from the stack. This one had her grandfather's handwriting, but with a familiar scrawl above it. It's a letter to the family, she whispered, her heart racing with hope. This could be the key, but even as she spoke, the room felt heavy with unvoiced fears and doubts. The air thickened with the potential for growth, and yet the worry of history repeating itself loomed like a shadow overhead. Would sharing their grandfather's story be the bridge that finally connected them? Or would it open wounds they thought were healed? The anticipation hung in the air, as thick as the dust swirling around them, and Mary held her breath, waiting for Jake's next move, his next words that could change everything. What would he choose to embrace? A new beginning or the familiar silence? As the silence stretched, Mary's mind railed against the weight of expectation. What if Jake decided to walk away? She didn't think she could bear it. Every second felt like a drop of water, slowly filling an already fragile vessel. Okay, he said at last, his voice barely above a whisper. Let us read it together. Relief washed over her, mixed with a rush of excitement. She held the letter close, the ink soaking in the gravity of their unfolding story. With each unfolding, each flake of dust floating in the sunbeam, she could feel echoes of the past breathing life into their present. Can you believe this? Jake murmured, peering over her shoulder at the elegant script. He was so normal. Mary laughed slightly, the sound a nervous release. Normal? A bomber pilot during World War II. I would say that's pretty far from normal. Jake smiled faintly. You know what I mean. He had a life, a family. We only got some tough grandpa with a war story. This changes everything. Her heart raced. The more they peeled back, the more humanity they unearthed. The letter continued, detailing not only his daily trials but also fond memories of home, snapshots of mundane life interspersed with the horrors of war. It was bittersweet, the contrast of love and duty resonating deeply. As Mary read on, she felt a sense of fierce pride rising within her. This was her heritage, a testament not just of survival, but of resilience. Mary, Jake said suddenly, halting her moment of reflection. What if we turned these letters into something? A book, maybe? A tribute? The spark of hope ignited into a roaring flame in Mary's chest. Yes, people need to hear his story. It belongs to the world. But more importantly, it belongs to us. We need to stitch together our own threads, too. She glanced around the dusty room, Each corner held memories. Each scrap of furniture was a piece of their history. They were not just unearthing letters but also the remnants of their own connection, hopes and burdens of the past fluttering like moths in the flickering light. Jake was silent again, staring down at the trunk laden with memories. What if we can't do it? What if we're not like him? What if we fail? Then we fail together, Mary replied, her voice steady. But we can't keep pretending like the past doesn't matter. These stories matter. He matters. A determined light glimmered in Jake's eyes as realization dawned upon him. They were at the crux of a journey that transcended just their grandfather's legacy. It was their chance to redefine what family meant, to embrace the inevitability of flaws while celebrating the strength in their bond. Let us start here, Jake said at last, reaching for another letter. There must be more, so much more. As Mary turned to help him sift through the contents of the trunk, the world outside faded into a soft blur. Together, they started to unveil the next layers of their family's truth. Each letter became a stepping stone, a piece of the legacy they owed not just to their grandfather, but to each other. And as she read the next letter, a feeling of foreboding began to creep in. The lines were darker and the words grew serious. This was something deeper. What are you hiding, Grandpa? She murmured, more to herself than to Jake. The question hung between them like a thick fog, a prelude to revelations that neither was ready for. The more they uncovered, the more they realized some stories hurt to tell. But then, they thought, maybe it was time to face them head-on. With a shared look of resolve, they prepared to dive deeper, unaware of the truths and secrets that lay just ahead, waiting to change everything they thought they knew about their family. What awaited them in the next letter? Would it forge their bond stronger or fracture it forever? Mary's breath hitched as she unfolded the next letter. The paper felt different, worn but still strong enough to hold the weight of its words. She could almost feel her grandfather's presence, as if he were there guiding her through the memories of a life filled with both war and peace. Jake, she started, her voice trembling slightly. This one seems different. Jake leaned in closer, a sense of urgency washing over him. What does it say? She began to read aloud, the room hanging on every word. The letter detailed a mission that had gone terribly wrong, diving into details of near misses, close calls, and heart-stopping moments when death felt uncomfortably near. Darkness seeped into the story, but alongside it was a thread of hope, woven through the chaos, a love letter interlaced with hope for a brighter tomorrow. I thought war was all about struggle and pain, Mary said, stumbling through the raw emotion tumbling from the page. But he wrote about what he missed, the laugh of his children, the smell of his wife's cooking. Jake's brow furrowed. Those glimpses show his humanity. It's scary to think about understanding him in this way. She felt him shift beside her, the vulnerability of the moment reminding her how they were standing on the edge of something monumental. They were moving through two worlds, the one their grandfather experienced in the military and the one they were living now. Stitched into the fabric of his story, and in the quiet of the moment, something felt different. A faint crack in the walls around her grandfather's past began to form, revealing not only fear and trauma but love and longing. Mary, Jake whispered, still focused on the piece of history unfolding before them. Do you think he felt guilty for leaving them behind? For fighting a war so far from home? She nodded, her heart heavy. I think he had no choice. But the ways he coped, it's almost like he wrote this letter for them, for all of us. He wanted us to know it wasn't just about fighting, it was about living. As they read deeper, the threads of his experience started to intertwine with their own. With every word, the fragile understanding of their family legacy began to grow roots, pushing deeper into their hearts. What if he thought about them every day he was away? Jake mused, his voice thick with empathy. Mary's eyes softened. That's probably what kept him going. His love was the tether, anchoring him in the storm. They paused, both thinking of their own tangled relationships, the promises and disappointments that echoed through generations. Do you think we are as brave as he was? Jake's voice cracked, the question hanging heavy in the air. Mary took a breath, feeling the weight of it. Bravery looks different for all of us. But facing the truths, confronting our past, that takes real courage. The crack of a floorboard made them jerk, the world outside creeping back in. Mary's eyes darted to the trunk, heavy with potential. So many more letters, filled with stories begging to be told. Do you think he ever forgave himself? Jake asked quietly, breaking the palpable silence around them. I hope he did, she replied thoughtfully. But we need to find that out first. With fire in their hearts, they locked eyes. Together, they leaned back into the contents of the trunk, ready to embrace whatever history awaited them. Each letter was a thread pulling them toward a truth, a crucial piece of their legacy that could bind them closer together or tear them apart. Mary felt the rise of a new question forming as she moved to reach another letter. What truths would they uncover next? Would they bring healing, or would they tear apart the fragile bond they had just begun to forge? Mary hesitated, her fingers brushing over the next letter in the trunk. This one, though yellowed with age, felt remarkably intact, as if eager to share its secrets. She glanced at Jake, his expression mirrored hers, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Ready? She asked, her voice just a whisper in the thick silence of the attic. He nodded, a slight gulp in his throat. With trembling hands, she pulled out the letter and unfolded it carefully, the scent of old paper wrapping around her like a familiar hug. The familiar scrawl danced across the page. Her grandfather had penned this one in a different hand, his emotions spilling out with raw honesty. Dear Emily, she read, the name striking a chord deep within her. Jake leaned in closer, fascination evident in his gaze. Emily? Wasn't that his wife? Mary nodded slowly, her heart racing. Yes, I think so. This might be the most personal one yet. She cleared her throat, her voice steady as she continued. The letter painted a vivid picture of her grandfather's longing for home, the warmth of a shared meal, the comfort of a loving embrace. There were bits about the frustrations of war, the endless noise, but intertwined with that was a profound yearning for the simple moments that radiated joy. Remembering your laughter, it is the only sound I crave amidst the chaos. She read aloud, her heart swelling with emotion. I find solace in my dreams, where I can hold you close, even just for a moment. Tears pricked at her eyes. He must have felt so alone. Jake's voice was a soft tremor. Can you imagine writing something like that? Putting your heart out there like that? Mary took a deep breath. It is beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. To love and miss someone so deeply it must have been unbearable. And yet he kept going. He fought for that love. Jake's eyes sparkled with realization. He was fighting not just for his country but for her, for all of you. Mary felt a surge of understanding, the connections between past and present solidifying in her mind. This letter, these words, were more than an expression of love. They were a testament of resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail through love. As she reached the end, she paused, her finger tracing the final strokes of the ink. He wrote about wanting to return home to be with her again. But he never got to. Jake frowned, uncertainty creeping into their shared moment. What if he regretted not being there? What if this was his way of coping? The quiet settled heavily around them, thoughts swirling like storm clouds. I think he had to find peace within it, Mary finally replied, like he was fighting for redemption as much as anything else. That thought settled in, echoing within both of them, mingling with the memories they had begun to unravel. With a sigh, Mary folded the letter back carefully, the heart of their grandfather's story beating strongly within her again. She felt a shift in the air, a charge of emotion that hung between them, a shared understanding and weight. We need to keep going, she said quietly, setting the letter down but feeling the last flicker of its flame deep within. There are more letters, more to uncover. Jake nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. And we might find more than just memories. We might find answers to questions we didn't even know we had. As they settled back, Mary reached for another letter, her heart racing with curiosity. This was just the beginning, and she could feel it, the lingering echoes of their grandfather's past stirring them forward. What other revelations waited? Would they unearth the truth of his heart? Or would they find shadows that still lingered in the corners of family history? Mary's fingers trembled as they hovered over the next letter in the trunk. The air around them crackled with a mix of excitement and tension. She glanced at Jake again. No longer needing words, they both felt it. An unspoken bond formed by the weight of their shared heritage. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Always," Jake replied, a sense of resolve in his eyes. This letter was not as worn as the last. The envelope was still crisp, hinting at something precious sealed tightly inside. With careful hands, Mary pulled it from its resting place. She could feel the energy of the past radiating from it, drawing her in. "Let us see what he has to say," she encouraged, unfolding the letter. As she began to read, the words flowed with an urgency that gripped both of their hearts. "My dearest Emily," the opening line sent shivers down her spine. Each swirl of ink seemed to pulse with her grandfather's energy, each word clawing its way through the decades. His feelings Haven dulled with time. "Look at this, Jake. It's almost like he's talking directly to us," she said, her voice lifting with the thrill of connection. "Keep reading," he urged, leaning closer, his breath hitching slightly as her voice filled the attic. "I feel the weight of time and distance, but your love is always my guiding light. Without you, I am but a shell." Mary's eyes glossed over with tears. There was a rawness to his sentiments, a truth that felt vital, like a heartbeat echoing in the silence of the attic. He was still so in love through everything. Jake reached out, gently squeezing her shoulder. He poured his soul into these letters. They were his lifeline. "Yes." Mary's voice rose with fervor. "And here he is, caught in the turbulence of war, yet still managing to convey such strength through love." She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her, not just for discovering the letters, but for understanding this incredible man who had been both soldier and lover. She continued reading. The words revealed a side of her grandfather she had never known. There were details about his surroundings, the sights and sounds of war that melded with the sweet memories of home. "Sometimes at night, I can almost smell your cooking. I dream of our garden and the laughter of our children." Mary swallowed hard. The imagery painted a canvas of her family's past, a life unfulfilled yet vibrant in its potential. He dreamed of coming back, Jake, not just to Emily, but to the life they hadn't been able to build together. Jake frowned, the weight of that possibility pressing down heavily. But what if he never did get to come back? "Then these letters are even more important," she replied, determination sparking in her chest. "We have to tell their story, the legacy of love that perseveres even through loss." Jake nodded, his resolve quickening. "If we can find out more about how he lived, maybe we can find what he hoped to protect." As Mary drew the letter closer to finish, she saw a small note tucked away at the bottom of the page. It was barely visible, hinting at secrets yet to be revealed. "What does it say?" Jake asked, his excitement palpable. She felt her heartbeat quicken. "It says a word of warning, keep this safe." "What does that mean?" he wondered, his tone laced with curiosity. "I don't know, but it sounds like there's more to uncover." A hidden truth. With that thought lingering, the attic felt transformed, alive with the anticipation of lost discoveries. What secrets lay behind that warning? Would they uncover the heart of their grandfather's story? Or was this only the tip of an emotional iceberg yet to be explored? Mary's heart raced as she stared at the last few lines of the letter, feeling the weight of her grandfather's message seep into her bones. The idea that hidden truths lay in wait sent shivers down her spine. She brushed her fingers over the paper, tracing the ink, feeling more connected to her grandfather than she had ever imagined. "Do you think it's about his time in the war? Or something more personal?" Jake asked, sensing her unrest. I think it could be both," she said, her voice barely above a whisper again. The notion of untold stories terrified and thrilled her at once. Now they had to dig deeper. "We need to find out why he wanted to keep this safe." Jake nodded, contemplation etched on his face. What if this warning involved something or someone? Families in turmoil, perhaps, or secrets that could change everything about how we see him. Pushing aside the envelope, Mary leaned forward, her fingers brushing over all the other letters in the trunk. "Let us look for more. There might be clues." She felt the urgency to uncover the pieces of their family history as they went through the remaining letters. Each felt like a small treasure, but one small note caught her attention. It was yellowed and barely legible, tucked in between two larger letters. With a glance at Jake, she carefully extracted it and began to read aloud. The key to understanding rests within the whispers of yesteryear. She recited, baffled. What could that mean? Jake raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Whispers of yesteryear, maybe he was hinting at something he witnessed or a place from his past. Or even people that were left behind, Mary suggested, her mind racing. People whose stories intertwine with his own. If we can pinpoint the key moment he mentioned, we might unearth the truth he wanted to protect. They took a moment, both quiet as they processed these new revelations. The attic was dim, shadows dancing as the sunlight faded outside. The weight of each letter pressed on them. Stories of courage and heartache hung in the air like unspoken promises. Mary stood with determination, her mind drifting back to conversations she'd had with her grandmother about family ties. Emily deserved to know the truth. And if my grandfather was keeping something from her, we need to find out for both of them. What if he wrote about it somewhere? Places he wanted to go back to, things that haunted him? There have to be clues in the letters, Jake said, standing up and brushing dust off his jeans. His own resolve solidified. They quickly started gathering more letters, scrutinizing each one, hoping for hints, codes, anything that could lead them to the hidden truth as the night wore on. Mary's eyes caught a glimpse of something unexpected, another envelope inside the trunk, larger and older than the rest, addressed to her grandfather from someone named Thomas, a name that sent pricking chills down her spine. Who is Thomas? She thought aloud, turning it over in her hand. What could he possibly have to say? Jake leaned in closer, excitement shimmering in his gaze. We need to open it. This could be the keystone to everything. With bated breath, Mary carefully peeled open the envelope, a slow flutter of anticipation swirling in her chest. She could feel the moment thick with potential, as if the room itself held its breath, waiting for the truth to spill out. But as she peered inside, a small photograph slipped out, landing softly on the dusty floor. Mary's heart raced. What could it reveal? What had they just unearthed? In the flickering light of the attic, she reached down to retrieve the photograph, where an unsolved mystery awaited her trembling fingertips. What story would it tell? Mary's fingers trembled as she picked up the photograph, the edges soft and curled with age. She hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on her chest. What secrets lay behind this image? She turned it over, revealing faded words scrawled across the back. To my dearest friend, always remembering the bonds we forged on distant shores. The signature Thomas. Jake leaned closer, his breath hitching in curiosity. This Thomas. He must have meant something significant to your grandfather during the war. With a quick glance at Jake, Mary felt an unsteady mixture of anticipation and dread. They were peering into a past woven with emotions they could barely comprehend. Her mind raced with questions. How did Thomas play into her grandfather's life? What had he seen? What had he lost? Let us see the front, Jake urged, his voice low and reverent. Mary flipped the photograph, revealing two young men, arm in arm, wearing uniforms that shimmered in the light of a sun-drenched day. Her grandfather's infectious smile burst from the photograph, while Thomas's face bore a more somber expression, eyes that seemed to hold untold stories. I can't believe we've found this. It feels like we're stepping into a moment frozen in time, Jake said, his enthusiasm infectious. Mary studied the photograph closely. They look so close. I wonder what happened to Thomas? Maybe the letters can tell us. There might be more about him, what they experienced together. In that instant, a drive ignited within Mary. The absence of Thomas loomed large, as if he were a ghost urging them to discover more. She couldn't shake the thought that their shared experiences in war may have shaped the very man her grandfather became. They started rifling through the letters again, hoping for any mention of Thomas or the bonds that had formed in those tumultuous years. As the night pressed on, another small note slipped out, a faint hint of ink peeking at them, calling for attention. Mary carefully unfolded it, glancing over a mixture of names, snippets of places and dates. A map? Her heart raced as pieces began to align. Look at this. Some of these locations match places from the letters we found earlier. He must have returned to them after the war, hoping to reconnect. Or perhaps to remember. Jake mused, excitement electrifying the air. Mary's eyes flicked back to the photograph of the two men. How could he have left him behind? Feels impossible. To love someone so deeply and not share that bond with anyone else. Vulnerability wrapped around her heart, her thoughts tethering to the notion of family and relationships left unsaid. Time drifted, caught between the present and fragile memories of the past. They dove deeper into the letters, searching for more connections, details that might expose fragments of their grandfather's experiences, turning the known into something tangible, heartbreaking yet beautiful. Then, after what felt like hours, Jake stumbled across a larger envelope, the familiar handwriting once again. The flap was unsealed, inviting them into another layer of the mystery. Should we? Jake asked, glancing at Mary. Absolutely, she breathed, feeling a rush of courage. With each layer that revealed itself, a new sensation of determination flooded in. They were so close to uncovering the truth. As Mary opened the flap, a small, folded document slipped out. The moment trembled with suspense. They both leaned in, hearts racing in unison. What would this document reveal? What life-altering truth lay within its pages, waiting to be rediscovered after all these years? Mary unfurled it slowly, every second stretching into eternity. She could feel the weight of history in her hands, as their need to understand deepened. And then she began to read. The words unfolded like secrets, spilling forth a kaleidoscope of emotions. Mary's eyes raced across the page, absorbing each line as if it were a lifeline connecting her to a past long buried. The letter detailed not just their grandfather's life during the war, but also moments shared with Thomas, risky escapades under fire, laughter amidst tragedy, and promise-filled dreams whispered in the dark. She felt each word as if they were brushing against her heart. Thomas came to me when the nights grew long and the fears seeped in. We talk about home, about families waiting for the war to end. About love. The letter was alive, imbued with hope and camaraderie, detailing how they found solace in one another. Mary Jake's voice was barely above a whisper. He pulled closer, peering at the document with a reverence that mirrored her own. Did he really write that? It sounds like he was everything to your grandfather. Mary nodded, her throat tightening. He must have been, but there's more. Listen to this. She scanned further down, breath hitching as she came across a phrase that chilled her heart. I promised him that if anything ever happened, I wouldn't forget. A heavy silence hung between them, a promise made in the depth of humanity's chaos, a commitment that resonated through the years like a distant drumbeat. The weight of the unfulfilled promise cast an emotional shadow over the glowing memories, revealing a darker side of love forged in war. What happened to Thomas? Jake asked, frowning deeply. Did he die? Mary could barely breathe. I don't know. What if he never made it home? The image of her grandfather's carefree smile now felt bittersweet, woven with threads of grief she never understood until this moment. They exchanged glances, their questions unspoken but echoing loudly. What did her grandfather carry with him in silence all those years? How many times had the thought of Thomas crossed his mind, especially when memories flared bright against the darkness of loss? Mary turned back to the letter, desperately searching for hints. There, scribbled in a corner, was an address, a location that had been significant to both men. If we can find this place, she whispered, a sharp thrill of possibility sparking in her veins. Then maybe we can learn the truth about him, about what your grandfather never said, Jake replied, an excitement bubbling up beneath their anxiety. She folded the letter carefully, each crease a promise of exploration, an invitation to delve deeper into the heart of her grandfather's past. The idea of seeking out that address, of perhaps finding remnants of that bond, filled her with urgency and determination. But what if it's just a dead end? Jake's brow furrowed. What if we don't find anything? No, she countered firmly, her resolve growing. This isn't just about uncovering a hidden chapter. It's about remembering. Maybe it's time to honor that promise. The room felt charged, alive with the spirit of those who lived and fought. She realized they were not merely uncovering history. They were weaving a bridge between generations, linking grief to hope, silence to understanding. They packed up the letters and photographs, but in her heart, Mary felt like she was carrying more than mere papers. She was holding a connection to their past and the scattered pieces of someone's heart. Stepping outside into the crisp night air, Mary turned to Jake, determination glistening in her eyes. "Let us go find Thomas." As they started down the path toward the unknown, a shiver of excitement coursed through her. With each step, the mysteries began to unravel before them like a secret map, leading to the resolution that had awaited them all along. Would the journey spark revelations that even time could not erase? Would they uncover the lost bonds that had slipped through the cracks of history? As anticipation swelled in her chest, one question lingered: what awaited them at the end of this journey? The sun peeked through the faded curtains of the attic, illuminating a world filled with dusty memories and the promise of discovery. Mary and Jake stood resolute, hearts united by the weight of their grandfather's hidden past. The address from her grandfather's letter clutched tightly in Mary's hand was like a beacon, guiding them towards the echoes of love and loss that had shaped their family. Together, they drove through town, the familiar streets taking on a new significance. As they neared the destination, a small, unassuming house emerged from their memories. It was nestled beneath towering trees, shrouded in shadows of the past. "This is it," Mary breathed, excitement and anxiety crashing within her like waves as they stepped out of the car, full hearts filled with trepidation. The house stood still, its weathered exterior whispering stories long forgotten. Mary glanced at Jake, and the shared spark in their eyes turned into a silent vow whatever they uncovered here would stitch their fragmented family history back together. They knocked hesitantly, anticipation crackling in the air. The door creaked open to reveal an elderly woman, the lines on her face etching a lifetime of history. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice gentle yet curious. The moment Mary spoke her grandfather's name, a flicker of recognition lit up the woman's eyes. "Tommy," she whispered, brushing her hand against her heart, as if recalling a distant melody. The sharp intake of breath brought a rush of emotions flooding through Mary. "Yes, we're his grandchildren," Mary explained, her voice trembling slightly. "We've been uncovering his letters, and we're hoping you might share more about him and Thomas." The woman's gaze softened, and without a word, she led them inside. The air shifted. It was as if they were stepping into a sanctuary of memories. The walls were lined with photographs, a mix of black and white snapshots and colorful portrayals that captured the essence of lives intertwined by war and love. Seated at a small table, the woman began sharing tales of her late husband, stories of laughter, sacrifice, and the harsh realities of the war. Each word wrapped around Mary and Jake like an embrace, filling the gaps left behind in their hearts. They learned how Tommy met Thomas, a bond formed amidst chaos, laughter, and unyielding camaraderie in the face of fear. "He wouldn't talk much about Thomas after the war," she said quietly. It was as if he was carrying a piece of his heart with him, a piece that was lost but never forgotten. He felt responsible for Thomas like he had to carry that memory. Mary felt the weight of those words settle inside her. In that moment, everything clicked. Their grandfather's silence wasn't merely about stoicism. It was a tribute to the love he had for his friend, an unbroken thread of loyalty that echoed across the years. After hours of stories, Mary felt a sense of closure gently unfurling within her. They were discovering the truth not only about their grandfather but about themselves. Love, after all, transcends even the fiercest battle. Standing to leave, Mary and Jake turned to the woman, gratitude flooding their hearts. "Thank you for sharing this with us, for helping us understand him." She smiled softly, her eyes glistening. What he fought for was love, love for his country, love for his family, and love for those he lost. Remember that. As they walked away, the sun began to set, bathing the world in rich hues of gold and crimson. "It feels like we've finally put together some pieces," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. Mary nodded, filled with newfound understanding. We can honor him by sharing all of this, the love, the sacrifices, and the friendships. That's what ties us together as a family. Back at the trunk, they carefully arranged their letters and photographs, the narrative constructing itself elegantly, rich with stories of courage and connection. Time would continue marching on. Yet they finally understood that family meant more than blood, it meant empathy, shared truths, and the commitment to remember. As twilight wrapped around them, Mary and Jake held hands, stepping into the future together, hearts full, ready to face whatever came next, knowing they had each other and the legacy of their grandfather to light the way. Remembering the journey they took, the lessons, and the love they unearthed, Mary turned to the audience with a fierce urgency. You need to subscribe now to follow incredible journeys just like ours. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to boost our community and feed the algorithm. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this transformative story with at least 5 friends who need to feel the power of reconnection. The air thrummed with potential as the echo of their journey lingered, waiting for the next soul to discover the power of bonds that live beyond time.